Daeho pressed his face against the small window as the transport ship approached the Galactic Sciences Academy. The massive structure floated in space like a crystal flower, its transparent walls gleaming with rainbow colors. Dozens of different ships moved around it like busy insects. "First time seeing the Academy?" asked the pilot, a tall blue creature with 4 arms. "Yes," Daeho replied, unable to hide his excitement. "It's beautiful." The pilot's expression changed when he heard Daeho's voice. His large eyes widened and he quickly looked away. "Right. Well, we'll be docking soon." Daeho had noticed this reaction many times during his long journey from Earth. Other passengers would start normal conversations, then suddenly become nervous when they realized what he was. A human. A Deathworlder. The ship shuddered as it connected to the Academy's docking port. Daeho gathered his simple backpack and joined the line of students waiting to leave. A group of crystalline beings chatted excitedly about their advanced chemistry classes. Behind them, several gaseous creatures floated in special containment suits, their voices making soft humming sounds. When the doors opened, everyone moved forward. Daeho stepped onto the Academy's main platform and took a deep breath. The air tasted clean and slightly sweet. Around him, students from dozens of different worlds walked in all directions. Some had scales, others had fur, and many had body shapes he had never seen before. "Welcome to Galactic Sciences Academy," announced a mechanical voice. "All new students please report to Orientation Hall Alpha." Daeho followed the crowd through corridors made of what looked like living crystal. The walls pulsed with soft light, and strange plants grew from the ceiling. Everything was designed to accommodate different types of life. Some areas had lower gravity, others had different air mixtures. As he walked, Daeho noticed other students moving away from him. Conversation stopped when he passed. A small creature that looked like a walking flower actually hid behind a larger student when it saw him. In Orientation Hall Alpha, hundreds of students filled the vast space. Daeho found an empty seat near the back. The chairs were designed to adjust to different body types, so his fit perfectly. Around him, students whispered and pointed. He heard the word Deathworlder several times. A massive tree-like being walked onto the stage. Its bark was silver and its leaves glowed with soft green light. When it spoke, its voice was deep and ancient. "Welcome, students, to another semester at the Academy. I am Professor Nilesh, head of the Xenobiology Department. You come from 47 different worlds, each with unique gifts to share." The professor's glowing eyes swept across the audience and stopped on Daeho for a moment. "This year we have our first student from the world called Earth, a Class 12 Death World." Several students gasped. Others moved further away from Daeho's section. A crystalline being near the front actually cracked, making a sound like breaking glass. "I expect all students to treat each other with respect and scientific curiosity," Professor Nilesh continued. "Fear has no place in the pursuit of knowledge." After orientation, students received their room assignments and class schedules. Daeho's dormitory was in the Biological Sciences wing. The corridors here were warmer and had higher humidity to accommodate carbon-based life forms. He found his room number and pressed his hand to the scanner. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a simple space with a bed, desk, and storage area. The walls could display images from home, and Daeho set them to show pictures of Earth's forests and oceans. A soft knock came at his door. Daeho opened it to find a maintenance worker, a small being with 6 legs and large compound eyes. "Delivery for the human student," the worker said, setting down a large container. His voice shook slightly. "Special gravity weights for your exercise needs." "Thank you," Daeho said. "But I don't think I'll need these." The worker looked confused. "The container weighs 50 standard units. Humans require heavy exercise equipment, correct?" Daeho easily lifted the container with one hand. It felt like lifting a bag of groceries. "This seems pretty light to me." The maintenance worker's eyes went huge. He dropped his scanner and ran down the hallway without another word. Daeho sighed and closed his door. Maybe coming to the Academy had been a mistake. On Earth, everyone had been excited about his acceptance. He was the first human student ever chosen for the prestigious program. But here he felt like a monster. His communication device chimed with a message from home. It was from his sister Somin. "Hey, big brother, how's space school? Are you making lots of alien friends? Mom made your favorite kimchi yesterday and said the house feels too quiet without you. Study hard and make Earth proud." Deho smiled, feeling a little better. At least his family believed in him. The next morning he found the dining hall. It was enormous, with different sections for various dietary needs. Some areas had liquid nutrition tanks, others had mineral feeding stations. The section for carbon-based omnivores was near the back. Deho got his food and looked for a place to sit. Every table he approached suddenly found reasons to leave. Finally, he sat alone at a table near the window. As he ate, he watched other students socializing and laughing together. A group of insectoid beings worked on homework together. Some gaseous entities shared what looked like chemical jokes, changing colors rapidly as they laughed. "Excuse me," said a voice behind him. Deho turned to see a tall, crystalline being. Its body was made of what looked like living diamond, and its faceted surface reflected the room's light in beautiful patterns. "You're the human student," the being said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, I'm Lee Deho. I am Veltar from Nexus Prime. I study advanced biochemistry." Veltar paused, seeming nervous. "Is it true that your species can survive in environments that would kill most other life forms?" "I guess so," Deho replied carefully. "Earth has some pretty dangerous places." Veltar's crystal body dimmed slightly. "Fascinating. And terrifying." The being quickly walked away. After breakfast, Deho went to his first xenobiology class. The laboratory was filled with strange equipment and specimen containers. Other students were already working at their stations, wearing thick protective gear. Professor Nilesh entered the room, his tree-like form taking up considerable space. "Today we begin our major semester project. You will work in teams to study life forms from the newly discovered world of Zerion 7. He projected an image of a green and brown planet. Zerion 7 is classified as moderately hazardous, higher gravity than standard aggressive plant life and unstable weather patterns. The perfect place to test your research skills." Students looked nervously at the image. Deho thought the planet looked quite pleasant, like some of Earth's jungle regions. "Your team assignments are posted on your communication devices. You have 1 week to prepare before departure." Deho checked his device. His team included Veltar, the crystalline being from breakfast, plus 2 others he hadn't met yet. He wondered if this expedition might give him a chance to prove that humans could be helpful, rather than horrifying. Looking around the lab at his nervous classmates, Deho realized that his real education was just beginning. Deho arrived early for his first practical xenobiology session. The laboratory was filled with specimen containers, each one marked with warning symbols in different alien languages. He recognized some of the symbols from his preparation studies, but others were completely new. Other students began filtering into the lab, all wearing thick protective suits and gloves. Deho looked down at his regular clothes and wondered if he had missed something in the instructions. "Where is your safety equipment?" asked a voice behind him. Deho turned to see an insectoid being with 6 arms and compound eyes. Its exoskeleton was dark green with intricate patterns. "I'm Thakmor from Hive Colony 7, the being continued. "And you must be the human everyone is talking about." "Lee Deho," he replied. "I don't think I got any safety equipment. Should I ask the professor?" Thakmor's antennae twitched nervously. Perhaps that would be wise. These specimens can be quite dangerous. Professor Nilesh entered the laboratory, his massive tree-like form casting shadows across the room. "Today you will learn proper specimen handling techniques. Each container holds life forms from different worlds, some of which can be lethal to certain species." The professor's glowing eyes found Deho. "Mr. Lee, you may proceed without additional protection. Your species' natural resistances should be sufficient." A collective gasp arose from the other students. Several backed away from Deho's workstation. "Let's begin with basic observation," Professor Nilesh announced. "Container Alpha 7 contains a spine worm from Altair Prime, extremely venomous to most carbon-based life forms." Students approached their containers very carefully. They used mechanical arms and scanning devices to examine the creatures inside. Deho watched them work for a moment, then simply opened his container and reached inside. "Stop!" shouted a gaseous being in a containment suit. "That creature's venom can kill in seconds." Deho looked up, holding the spine worm gently in his bare hands. The creature was about the size of an earth snake, with beautiful purple and gold markings. "It seems pretty calm to me." The gaseous being made a sound like escaping steam. I am Quinra from the Cloud Nebulae. Please put that creature down before someone gets hurt." "It's okay," Deho said softly. I used to catch snakes like this when I was a kid back home. You just have to be gentle and move slowly. The entire class had stopped working to stare at him. Veltar, the crystalline being from yesterday, was frantically taking notes. Remarkable, Professor Nilesh said calmly. The creature does indeed appear relaxed. How interesting. This is normal for humans? Veltar asked, his diamond-like body reflecting the lab's lights nervously. Pretty much, Deho replied, carefully placing the spine worm back in its container. Earth has lots of venomous creatures. We learned to deal with them early. Thakmor clicked his mandibles together, a sound of deep concern. What other dangerous creatures live on your world? Deho thought for a moment. Well, there are bears that can weigh as much as a small vehicle. Sharks with hundreds of razor-sharp teeth. Poisonous spiders, deadly snakes, aggressive cats the size of your average transport pod. Several students made distressed sounds. Quinra's gaseous form began to compress in fear. And humans live alongside these monsters? Veltar asked. They're not monsters, Deho said. They're just animals. Actually, the most dangerous thing on Earth is probably mosquitoes. Mosquitoes? Professor Nilesh inquired. Tiny flying insects that drink blood and spread diseases. They kill more humans each year than any large predator. The silence in the lab was deafening. A small plant-like student in the corner began to wilt visibly. Your species consumes other living creatures? Thakmor asked carefully. Sure. We eat plants and animals. Fish, birds, mammals, vegetables, fruits. Humans are omnivores. Do you consume toxic substances? Veltar's question came out as a whisper. Deho grinned. Define toxic. We drink alcohol for fun, even though it's technically a poison. Coffee contains caffeine, which is toxic to lots of animals. We eat spicy peppers that burn our mouths because we like the sensation. Quinra made a sound like a deflating balloon and had to be helped. To a special recovery chamber, Professor. Nilesh raised one of his branch-like arms. Perhaps we should continue with the lesson. Container Beta 12 contains crystalline organisms that require delicate handling. The next container held what looked like living diamonds. Other students used specialized tools to examine them, afraid to touch the sharp edges. Deho reached in and picked one up to study it closely. Be careful, Veltar warned. Those edges can cut through most materials. They're beautiful, Deho said, turning the organism in his hand. Like living jewelry. The edges are sharp but not dangerous if you handle them right. How can you tell? Thakmor asked. Same way you'd handle broken glass back home. Firm grip, no sliding, respect the edges but don't fear them. As the class continued, a pattern emerged. Every specimen that required extreme caution for other students was just another interesting creature to Deho. He handled acid-producing organisms that required special neutralizing chambers. He examined explosive seed pods that others approached with bomb disposal equipment. He even held a creature that generated electrical discharges, commenting that it felt like getting shocked by Earth's electric eels. This is impossible, Veltar muttered, his crystal body flickering with agitation. Your species should be extinct. How does anything survive on your world? Life finds a way, Deho replied simply. Earth is a tough place, so everything that lives there has to be tough too. The lesson ended with Professor Nilesh assigning research topics. Students would study specimens from their upcoming expedition to Zirion 7, learning to identify safe and dangerous life forms. As they prepared to leave, Deho was carefully closing a container when something went wrong. The reinforced material that was supposed to withstand incredible pressure crumbled in his hands like old paper. The specimen inside, a harmless moss-like organism, spilled onto the table. I'm so sorry, Deho said quickly. I was being as gentle as I could. The other students stared in horror at the destroyed container. It was made from materials designed to contain some of the universe's most dangerous substances. Fascinating, Professor Nilesh said calmly. It appears we need to revise our equipment specifications for Deathworlder students. After class, students hurried away from Deho as quickly as possible. He heard whispered conversations as he walked down the halls. Did you see him handle those creatures? He broke the reinforced container by accident. What kind of world creates beings like that? They eat poison for entertainment. Deho ate lunch alone again, watching other students socialize at their tables. He was beginning to understand why no human had attended the academy before. Maybe his species was just too different, too dangerous, to fit in with civilized galactic society. His communication device chimed with a message from Professor Nilesh. Please see me in my office after classes today. We need to discuss your expedition preparations. Deho spent the rest of the day wondering if he was about to be removed from the program. Perhaps the academy had decided that having a Deathworlder student was too risky. In other classes, word of his xenobiology demonstration had spread. Professors watched him carefully and students gave him even more space than before. By the end of the day, he felt completely isolated. When he arrived at Professor Nilesh's office, he found a space filled with plants from dozens of different worlds. Some were tiny and delicate, others were massive and exotic. The professor himself was tending to a group of flowering vines. "Sit down, Mr. Lee," the ancient being said without turning around. "We need to talk about your future at this academy." Deho's heart sank. He was about to become the first human student to be expelled from the Galactic Sciences Academy, before even completing his first week. Deho sat quietly in Professor Nilesh's office, surrounded by plants from across the galaxy. The ancient tree-like being continued tending his garden, his silver bark gleaming in the soft light. "You think I'm going to expel you?" Professor Nilesh said finally. "Still not turning around, aren't you?" Deho asked. "I scared everyone in class today. I broke equipment just by touching it. Maybe I don't belong here." Professor Nilesh finally turned, his glowing eyes focusing on the young human. "Do you know why I specifically requested a human student for this academy?" Deho shook his head. "Because I am old, Mr. Lee. Very old. I have taught students from hundreds of worlds for over 3,000 years. In all that time, I have learned one important truth. The greatest scientific discoveries come from seeing things differently." The professor moved closer, his massive form casting shadows across the room. "Your classmates see danger where you see opportunity. They see monsters where you see animals. They see toxins where you see medicine. Your perspective could revolutionize xenobiology. But I'm scaring everyone," Deho protested. "They won't even sit near me at lunch." "Fear is natural when confronting the unknown," Professor Nilesh replied. "But fear can be overcome through understanding. Give them time, and more importantly, give them proof that your differences are strengths, not threats." Over the next few days, Deho tried to follow the professor's advice. He ate alone but stopped trying to approach other students. He worked quietly in labs, being extra careful with equipment. He spoke only when asked direct questions. The isolation was harder than he had expected. Back home, Deho had always been social. He played sports, hung out with friends, and loved meeting new people. Here, he felt like a dangerous animal in a cage. His sister, So Min, sent daily messages, always cheerful and encouraging. She told him about her own preparations for the Academy's engineering program, and about their parents' pride in having 2 children accepted to galactic universities. "Don't give up, big brother," her latest message said. "You're representing all of Earth. Make us proud." The breakthrough came during Professor Nilesh's lecture on extremophile organisms. The topic was life forms that survived in conditions that would kill most creatures. "Can anyone give me an example of an extremophile?" the professor asked. Students offered various examples from their homeworlds: crystalline beings that lived in lava, gaseous creatures that survived in the vacuum of space, plant-like entities that thrived in acid lakes. "Earth has some interesting ones too," Deho said quietly. The lecture hall went silent. It was the first time he had volunteered information in class. "Please share," Professor Nilesh encouraged. Deho stood up slowly. "There are creatures called tardigrades, also known as water bears. They're microscopic, but they can survive in space without protection. They can be frozen solid for years and come back to life. They can survive radiation that would kill humans instantly." Students began taking notes, their fear temporarily replaced by scientific curiosity. "We also have tube worms that live around underwater volcanic vents," Deho continued. "They survive in temperatures that would melt metal, and in water so acidic it would dissolve most materials. They don't even need sunlight to live." "Remarkable," Veltar said, his crystal body flickering with excitement. "How do they obtain energy without photosynthesis?" "They have bacteria in their bodies that process chemicals from the volcanic vents," Deho explained. "It's called chemosynthesis." Thakmor raised 2 of his 6 arms. "Are there bacterial extremophiles as well?" "Tons of them. Some bacteria can survive in nuclear reactor cores. Others live in pure acid or extreme salt. There's even bacteria that can survive being dried out completely and come back to life when water is added." The questions continued for the rest of the class period. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Deho felt like he was contributing something valuable rather than just being a curiosity. After class, Veltar approached him cautiously. "Your knowledge of Earth's extremophiles is impressive. Perhaps we could study together sometime." It was a small step, but it felt like a major victory to Deho. The real test came 3 days later during an advanced laboratory session. Students were working with highly reactive chemicals when an accident occurred. A container of volatile acid tipped over, creating a dangerous spill that began eating through the floor. Students screamed and ran for the exits. Safety alarms blared throughout the building. Emergency protocols called for evacuation and specialized cleanup crews. But Deho didn't run. He quickly assessed the situation, remembering basic chemistry from high school. The acid was dangerous but not impossible to neutralize. He grabbed a container of alkaline solution from a nearby shelf and began carefully neutralizing the spill. "Get back," shouted a security guard who had arrived with the emergency team. "That area is too dangerous." "It's okay," Deho called back, continuing his work. "The reaction is controlled. I just need to maintain the right pH balance." The fumes that were forcing other students to evacuate didn't seem to bother him much. His eyes watered slightly, but he could still breathe and see clearly enough to work. Within minutes, he had neutralized the spill completely. What would have required hours of work by specialized cleanup crews and cost the academy thousands of credits was solved by a human student with basic chemistry knowledge. "How did you know how to do that?" asked Veltar, who had been watching from the safe zone. "We had to take safety courses before working in Earth labs," Deho explained. "Chemical spills happen sometimes. You learn to deal with them." "And the fumes didn't affect you?" Thakmor asked. "They stung a little, but nothing too bad. Probably less dangerous than some Earth air pollution." Professor Nilesh arrived with the cleanup crew, expecting to find a major disaster. Instead, he found students gathered around Deho, asking questions about human safety procedures and chemical resistance. "Well done, Mr. Lee," the professor said approvingly. "You may have saved weeks of research data." That evening, something unprecedented happened. Veltar knocked on Deho's door. "I brought some study materials," the crystalline being said nervously, "about our upcoming expedition to Zerion 7. Perhaps we could review them together." They spread the materials across Deho's desk. Zerion 7 was indeed classified as moderately hazardous. The gravity was higher than galactic standard. The atmosphere required breathing equipment for most species, and the plant life was unusually aggressive. "This looks challenging," Veltar said, studying the environmental data. Deho looked at the same information and felt oddly homesick. "It reminds me of some places on Earth. Higher gravity like some of our mountain regions, thick atmosphere like our tropical zones. Even the aggressive plants are similar to things we have." "You're not worried about the dangers?" Veltar asked. "Every place has dangers," Deho replied. "The key is understanding them and adapting. Humans got good at that because Earth didn't give us much choice." As they worked through the expedition materials, Veltar began to see past his fear of the Deathworlder sitting beside him. Deho wasn't a monster. He was just a student from a tough world, bringing unique knowledge and perspectives to their shared studies. "I owe you an apology," Veltar said finally. "I have been afraid of what I didn't understand." "That is not scientific thinking. You don't need to apologize," Deho replied. "I probably would have been scared too if I met an alien from a crystal world." They worked late into the night preparing for their expedition. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Deho felt like he might actually be making a friend. When his communication device chimed with a message from So-Min, he had good news to share for the first time. "Hey, little sister. Things are getting better here. I think I might actually fit in after all." The transport ship descended through Zerion 7's thick atmosphere, shaking as it hit pockets of turbulent air. Deho looked out the window at the green and brown landscape rushing up toward them. Dense forests covered rolling hills, and strange purple rivers wound between massive rocky formations. "Landing zone secured," announced the pilot. "Atmospheric analysis shows safe conditions for most species with proper equipment." Deho's team gathered their gear near the exit ramp. Veltar checked his environmental systems 3 times, his crystal body dim with worry. Quinra floated in a reinforced containment suit, designed for the planet's higher atmospheric pressure. Thakmor tested his breathing apparatus and gravity compensators. "Everyone ready?" Deho asked. shouldering his simple backpack. "Where's your equipment?" Quinra asked, her voice echoing strangely through her suit's speakers. "I don't think I need much," Deho replied. "The atmosphere is breathable for humans, and the gravity is only about 30% higher than Earth standard." His teammates exchanged worried looks. What seemed only 30% to a Deathworlder was potentially exhausting for species from lower gravity worlds. The ramp lowered with a mechanical hiss. Immediately, Deho could hear the sounds of Xerion 7. Strange bird-like calls, rustling vegetation, and the distant rumble of what might have been large animals. They stepped onto the surface, and Deho's teammates immediately struggled with the increased gravity. Veltar's usual graceful movements became clumsy and labored. Thakmor's 6 legs worked harder to support his body weight. Even in her protective suit, Quinra compressed slightly under the additional pressure. "This is going to be more difficult than anticipated," Thakmor said. Breathing heavily, Deho felt completely comfortable. The gravity reminded him of carrying a heavy backpack during Earth hiking trips. "We can rest whenever you need to," he offered. Their mission was to catalog new species in an area designated as Zone Alpha 7, about 5 kilometers from their landing site. According to Academy data, the zone contained unusual plant-animal hybrids that challenged current biological classifications. They began walking along what looked like an animal trail. The vegetation was thick and colorful, with plants that seemed to move and watch them pass. Some flowers actually turned to follow their movement, and vines shifted position as if reaching toward them. "Remarkable," Veltar said, stopping to examine a tree with blue bark and silver leaves. "The plant life here is far more active than our data suggested." "Stay alert," Thakmor warned, his compound eyes scanning the forest. Active plant life often means predatory plant life. As they walked deeper into the forest, the plants became increasingly aggressive. Vines reached toward them with obvious intent. Flowers snapped at anything that came close. Some trees actually moved their branches to block their path. "I don't like this," Quinra said, her gaseous form swirling nervously inside her suit. Deho found the aggressive plants more fascinating than frightening. They're like Venus flytraps back home, but bigger and more mobile. "Look at how they coordinate their movements," he demonstrated by walking toward a cluster of snapping flowers. The plants immediately focused on him, their movements becoming more aggressive. But Deho moved with careful confidence, avoiding their strikes while observing their behavior patterns. "You're treating them like predators," Veltar observed. "Because they are predators," Deho replied. "They hunt like pack animals. Watch how they try to herd me toward the larger plants." His teammates watched in amazement as Deho navigated through the dangerous vegetation with ease. He seemed to understand the plants' attack patterns instinctively, moving when they committed to strikes and staying still when they were simply testing his position. "How do you know how to do that?" Thakmor asked. "Same skills you'd use to avoid angry animals back home. Watch their body language, understand their intentions, don't make sudden movements unless you're escaping." They reached Zone Alpha 7 after 2 hours of hiking. His teammates were exhausted from the higher gravity and stress of navigating aggressive plants. Deho felt like he had taken a pleasant nature walk. The zone contained the strangest life forms any of them had ever seen. Creatures that looked like walking trees communicated through color changes in their bark. Plant-like animals swam through the air using wing-like leaves. Underground root networks seemed to share information across vast distances. "This is incredible," Veltar said, his crystal body brightening with excitement despite his fatigue. "These organisms challenge everything we know about the plant-animal distinction." They spent 2 days documenting species and collecting samples. Deho proved invaluable at approaching dangerous specimens that his teammates couldn't get near. His natural confidence around aggressive life forms allowed the team to gather data that would have been impossible otherwise. On their 3rd day, disaster struck. A massive electrical storm moved across the region faster than their weather tracking equipment had predicted. Hurricane-force winds bent massive trees like grass, and lightning struck constantly around them. "Emergency shelter," Thakmor shouted over the howling wind. "The storm will destroy our equipment." They huddled in a rocky outcrop as the storm raged around them. Rain fell in sheets so thick they could barely see beyond their shelter. Lightning strikes were so frequent the air itself seemed to glow. "How long will this last?" Quinra asked, her suit struggling to maintain proper pressure in the chaotic conditions. "Unknown," Veltar replied, checking their instruments. Our communication equipment is being disrupted. We can't contact the ship. The storm continued for 18 hours. When it finally passed, they emerged to find their extraction point completely changed. Trees had fallen across their route, new rivers had formed from the massive rainfall, and several landmarks had been destroyed. Worse, their equipment had been damaged by electromagnetic pulses from the lightning. Their navigation systems were dead, their communication array was fried, and their emergency beacon wasn't working. "We're lost," Dockmore said grimly. "And our extraction isn't scheduled for 4 more days," Veltar added. "If we can't signal for early pickup, we'll have to survive until then." Deho looked around at the storm-changed landscape. To his teammates, it looked like a disaster zone. To him, it looked like a camping trip with some extra challenges. "It's not that bad," he said calmly. "We have some food supplies, and this area has fresh water now from the storm. Those fruit-like plants we documented yesterday are probably edible. We can build shelter and wait for pickup." "You want to eat alien plants?" Quinra asked in horror. "We tested them for toxins," Deho reminded her. "They're safe for carbon-based life forms. Besides, humans have been eating strange plants for thousands of years. It's how we learned what was safe." Over the next few days, Deho transformed from team member to team leader. He found safe drinking water, identified edible plants, and built weatherproof shelters using local materials. His teammates, weakened by the higher gravity and alien environment, relied on his Deathworlder survival skills to keep them alive. "I don't understand how you can function so well in these conditions," Veltar said on their final night. The crystalline being was exhausted and homesick. "Earth taught us to adapt," Deho replied. "Every environment has challenges, but every environment also has resources. You just have to know how to find them." "Your world sounds terrifying," Quinra said. "It can be dangerous," Deho admitted, "but it's also beautiful. All that danger creates incredible diversity. Every ecosystem pushes life to evolve in amazing ways." When the extraction ship finally arrived, his teammates had a new understanding of their human colleague. He wasn't a monster from a death world. He was a survivor from a challenging world, bringing skills and perspectives that had saved all their lives. "I owe you an enormous debt," Dockmore said as they boarded the ship. "We all do," Veltar agreed. "Without you, we never would have survived the storm." Deho smiled, looking back at Zerion 7 as they lifted off. The planet that had challenged his teammates so severely had felt almost like home to him. But more importantly, he had finally found his place among his alien classmates, not as the scary Deathworlder, but as the teammate who brought unique strengths to their group. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, he felt like he truly belonged. The Academy's main auditorium buzzed with excitement as students and faculty gathered for the semester's research presentations. Deho stood backstage with his team, watching other groups present their findings through the curtain gap. "Are you nervous?" Veltar asked, his crystal body flickering with anticipation. "A little," Deho admitted. "Back on Earth, I never spoke in front of this many people." "You'll do fine," Quinra said, her gaseous form swirling confidently in her suit. "After everything we survived on Zerion 7, this should be easy." Dockmore clicked his mandibles in agreement. "Our research will change how the Academy views interspecies cooperation." When their names were called, the team walked onto the stage together. The auditorium fell silent as hundreds of students from dozens of worlds focused their attention on the unlikely group. A human, a crystalline being, an insectoid, and a gaseous entity. Professor Nilesh introduced them from his seat in the front row. Presenting research on adaptive biological classifications from Zerion 7, Team Alpha 7. Veltar began the presentation, explaining their initial mission and the challenges they faced. His crystal body projected holographic images of Zerion 7's unique plant-animal hybrid species. "These organisms challenge traditional biological categories," he explained. "They demonstrate characteristics of both plant and animal life simultaneously." Dockmore discussed their research methods and data collection techniques. Standard approaches proved insufficient for studying these hybrid organisms. "We required new methodologies developed during our expedition." Quinra presented their findings on the organism's communication networks. These species share information across vast distances through underground root systems and airborne chemical signals. The complexity rivals any known biological network. Finally, Deho stepped forward to conclude their presentation. 6 months ago, The sight of the human would have terrified most of the audience. Now students leaned forward with interest. What made our research possible, Deho began, was combining different perspectives and skills. Each team member brought unique strengths from their species and homeworlds. He gestured to his teammates. Veltar's crystalline structure allowed him to analyze mineral compositions that carbon-based instruments couldn't detect. Thakmor's compound eyes could see electromagnetic spectra invisible to the rest of us. Quinra's gaseous form could analyze chemical communications in ways solid beings never could. "And what did you contribute?" asked a student from the audience. Deho smiled. "I brought Deathworlder survival skills and a different way of thinking about dangerous situations. On Earth, we learn that dangerous environments often contain the most interesting life forms. What looks threatening to one species might be perfectly normal to another." The presentation ended to enthusiastic applause. During the question period, students asked technical questions about their discoveries, but also personal questions about how different species could work together effectively. "How did you overcome your initial fears?" asked a plant-like being from the back of the auditorium. Veltar answered first. "Scientific curiosity eventually overcame xenophobic programming. Deho's knowledge and perspectives proved invaluable to our research. For me," Thakmor added, "logic overcame emotion. Fear is illogical when cooperation produces better results." Quinra's response surprised everyone. "I learned that dangerous and helpful are not opposites. Deho's Deathworlder traits that initially frightened me were the same traits that saved our lives." After the presentation, Professor Nilesh approached the team. "Exceptional work. The Galactic Science Council has requested a full report on your findings. This research may reshape xenobiology curricula across the galaxy." But the real victory for Deho came during the reception afterward. Students who had avoided him all semester now approached with genuine interest. They asked about Earth's ecosystems, human adaptation strategies, and survival techniques. A young Felnari student, the same species as the one who had fainted when Deho lifted the storage container on his first day, nervously approached. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I'm starting advanced xenobiology next semester. Would you consider tutoring me in specimen handling techniques?" More students joined the conversation, asking similar questions. They wanted to learn from the Deathworlder, not hide from him. "This is unprecedented," Veltar observed quietly. "You've changed how the Academy views your species." Later that evening, Deho received a communication from Professor Nilesh. "Please come to my office tomorrow morning. We need to discuss your future at the Academy." This time, Deho wasn't worried about being expelled. He was curious about what opportunities might be waiting. The next morning, he found Professor Nilesh tending to his garden as usual. But the ancient being seemed more excited than Deho had ever seen him. "Your presentation yesterday has caused quite a stir," the professor began. "The Academy Board has voted to implement new curriculum standards based on your team's research." "What kind of standards?" Deho asked. "Interspecies cooperation requirements for all advanced studies, mixed species research teams, and most significantly a new department focused on Deathworlder perspectives in xenobiology." Deho's eyes widened. "A new department?" "The Department of Adaptive Xenobiology," Professor Nilesh confirmed. "They want you to help design the curriculum. Your unique perspective could train the next generation of xenobiologists to think beyond traditional species limitations." That afternoon, Deho sent a long message to his sister Soman. "Little sister, you won't believe what's happened here. Remember how scared I was about fitting in? Well, it turns out that being different isn't always a bad thing. The Academy wants me to help teach other students about human perspectives on biology and survival. They're also accelerating your acceptance into the engineering program. Apparently, they want more Deathworlder students now. You'll arrive next semester instead of next year. I can't wait to show you around campus. By the time you get here, being human won't be scary anymore. It'll just be one more interesting perspective in a galaxy full of diversity." The changes at the Academy came quickly. Within weeks, Professor Nilesh announced new policies encouraging interspecies collaboration. Mixed species dormitory assignments became standard. The dining hall was redesigned to facilitate interaction between different biological types. Most importantly, new safety protocols were developed that accounted for different species' natural resistances and abilities. Equipment was redesigned to accommodate various strength levels and sensory capabilities. 6 months later, Deho stood in the same auditorium where his team had presented their research. But this time he was watching new students arrive for orientation. Among the crowd of diverse beings, he spotted something that would have been impossible when he first arrived. A mixed group of students from different species talking and laughing together. A crystalline being was helping a gaseous entity with luggage. An insectoid was sharing food with a plant-like student. "Look how far we've come," Veltar said, joining him at the back of the auditorium. His friend now served as Daeho's research partner in the new adaptive xenobiology department. "It's amazing," Daeho agreed. "But look over there." Near the front of the auditorium sat a lone figure that other students seemed to be avoiding. It was a young being unlike any Daeho had seen before, covered in what looked like living metal, with energy crackling occasionally across its surface. "Velkarian," Veltar whispered, from the storm worlds. "Their bodies generate massive electrical discharges, extremely dangerous to most forms of life." Daeho watched as whispered conversations spread through the auditorium. Students pointed and moved away from the newcomer just as they had once done to him. "I'll be right back," Daeho said. He walked down the aisle and sat in the empty seat next to the Velkarian student. Several nearby students gasped and moved further away. "Hi," Daeho said simply. "I'm Lee Daeho from the Adaptive Xenobiology Department. You must be new here." The Velkarian turned, energy crackling more intensely with surprise. You're not afraid of me? Should I be?" Daeho asked with a smile. "I'm from a death world. We're used to dangerous things." "I'm Kral," the student said quietly. "From Velkar Prime. The energy discharges from my body can kill most organic life forms." "That sounds like it could be really useful for research," Daeho replied. "Have you considered studying energy-based life forms? Your natural abilities would give you insights that other students couldn't get." For the first time since arriving, Kral's energy field stabilized, crackling with what seemed like hope instead of defensive fear. "Would you like to sit with my friends and me?" Daeho offered. "I think you'd fit in perfectly with our research group." As they walked back up the aisle together, Daeho reflected on how much had changed. The academy that had once feared Deathworlders now actively recruited them. Students who had once hidden from dangerous species now sought them out as research partners. Fear had been replaced by curiosity. Isolation had been replaced by collaboration. And the galaxy had become a more interesting place because of it. Professor Nilesh was right. The greatest discoveries came from seeing things differently. Sometimes it took a monster to show everyone that monsters were just misunderstood friends waiting to be discovered.